welcome back to my channel, and today I'll be sharing with you my September TBR. So once again in September I have pretty much overbooked myself with too many readathons, but like always I'm indecisive and I can never pick just one readathon to stick to because I want to be included in everything. I want to do all the readathons. And also readathons, I love how prompts like help me pick a book from my physical TBR and then I end up finding new favorites. If August was anything to go by, I hope I find some new favorites and read a lot of 5-star books in September. So I'll just jump right into it. This month, to help me pick out all the books for the readathon, I have decided to join Becca's Bookoplothon readathon. As you can see, I have made a altered Bookoplothon spread and I rolled my die, and I'll be inserting clips throughout to show what rolls gave me what.
Let's roll. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So my first roll landed on a foiled cover, and for that I chose to read Shadow of a Fox by Julie Kagawa. I have been meaning to read this for the longest time. I think I got this book, I got this book in a Our Crate book, so I believe this is an Our Crate exclusive edition, and the best part is that it's signed. I always loved a signed book because it just makes it so much more special, and so I'm really excited to read this. I read Julie's other novels, The Iron King, The Iron Princess, that series back when I was like, I think like 13, even maybe 12, and I loved it. I really want to reread it, especially with the new covers that have come out. I just like know I'll love this book, so I've already ordered the rest of this trilogy. Yes, but this is about a half kitsune, half human main character, and I believe she has to retrieve or hide a secret scroll. I honestly don't need more than that. I love reading about other mythologies besides like Western, so this is based on Japanese mythology, and all I know about kitsunes is what I learned about Teen Wolf, and I don't know how much good representation that is, so I'm definitely excited to read this month. Next, I rolled on a community chest, and the prompt I picked was a book that Amazon recommended for me. I think a couple months ago now, I bought 5 books that Amazon was like, buy this, and they were really cheap, and I was like, okay, Amazon. And so for that, I'll be reading Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Rowan Horse. I have been meaning to read this book in like so long. It's like an urban fantasy dystopian based on Native American mythology. Like, how good does that sound? And it's a really short book, and I've already ordered the second book in the series, and I honestly think I'm gonna love this. I actually have started this on audiobook, but like it takes a lot for me to like audiobooks, so I decided just to read the physical copy, and so I'm really excited to finish this month. And that brings me to the next readathon I'll be doing this month, which is the Bratz Readathon. So I also will be reading this for the prompt Bunny Boo, which is for Sasha, and that is to read about a badass main character. And I definitely think Maggie, who is a monster hunter, classifies as a badass main character. So I'm really excited to get to this. The next roll was Water on the cover. So I'll be picking up Daughter of the Pirate King by Tracy Levenseller. That read Shadows Between Us this year and I absolutely loved it. And so then I have gone back and have been reading Tracy's backlog. This clearly has water on the cover, as it's about sea and pirates, and that's all I need to know. I'll also be reading this book for the Royal Readathon, which is hosted by Aaron over at Busy Bee, and this will be for the prompt Who Run the World, Girls, and also a name fit for a king.
And last roll. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chance card. Oh, it's gonna be. Pick. Okay, so that can run me.
The next spot I landed on was a chance card, and I was really scared because I put some books in here that I honestly might unhaul, so I was worried I was not going to get a book I liked. But the book that came out was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kamenar. I have been meaning to read this for the longest time. It sounds right up my alley as it's urban fantasy retelling of Beauty and the Beast. Like, that's all I need to know. The next role was sequel, and for this I'll be reading Vicious Spirits by Kat Cho. I absolutely love Wicked Fox, which is about a gumiho, and it's inspired by Korean mythology, and it's also urban fantasy. So this is the spin-off slash sequel to Wicked Fox, coming in the mail. Hopefully it will be here very soon, as I'm super excited to read it. And it was actually only released like a couple of days ago, I think.
Highest rated.
And the last role was highest rated book. I was actually scared to get this role because I knew it would be Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I'm super excited to read this, but at the same time, I'm not sure if I like it. Brandon Sanderson has been a hit or miss. I really like the Steelheart book, but I actually cannot get into the Mistborn trilogy or the Final Empire. I have tried to read the Final Empire now like 4 times and I cannot get through it. Like, I hate it. And which is like, I think, an unpopular opinion on BookTube, because everyone I see loves Mistborn and loves like all his series. So I'm like kind of scared to read more from Brandon Sanderson. This is a sci-fi about a space pilot, so maybe I will like Brandon Sanderson's sci-fi more than his fantasy. So I really hope I enjoy this, as it's also the highest rated book on my physical TBR. I'm expecting great things from this book. For the Bratz Readathon, I will be trying to complete Team Jade and Team Sasha. So for Team Jade, for the prompt Cool Cat, a book with a cat in it, I'll hopefully be reading The Lost Book of White by Cassandra Keller and Wesley Chu. I love Magnus Bane with like all my heart. Like, he's like honestly my favorite character in all the Shadowhunters, so I'm loving this new series about him, and I'm hoping Chairman Meow is in this book because I need a book about a cat. If there is no Chairman Meow in The Lost Book of White, I will be rereading a volume or 2 of Saga. The next prompt is East Asian, and for this I'll be reading Vicious Spirit, so I'll be doubling up on Bookoplothon and Bratz Readathon for this. Next is a green cover, Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I have heard so much about this book. It's set in Mexico in the Jazz Age, and it's about the god of death, and I think the main character falls in love with the god of death, and like, that sounds amazing. I've always loved like Hades and Persephone, so I hope it's kind of like a similar vibe of like a darker god who's actually not as bad as everyone thinks. So this is a short book. I really hope I love this because I've only heard great things about this book. I will also be reading this for the Royal Readathon for the prompt Bells Are Ringing. And then for the next prompt is to pick a trendy book, and for that I'm going to be reading Girl Serpent Thorn by Melissa Bashadurst. This was on my TBR in August, and I didn't get around to it. This has been circling the Twitter sphere, so I definitely classify this as trendy. And this is a Persian inspired fantasy book with a female romance, and that's literally all I need to know to go into this book. I will be also reading this for the Nevra and Roxy prompt. That is to read the group book or to read a female romance. I unfortunately can't get my hands on the Henna Wars yet, but I hope to soon. If I lucky enough to get my library copy in early, I'll be reading that, but regardless I'll be reading Girl Serpent Thorn. For Team Sasha, for the prompt Bunny Boo, I'll be reading Trail of Lightning, like I said, and for the prompt Hip Hop, which is a book with music, I'll be reading Serafina by Rachel Hartman. As you can see, I got this from a used bookstore on a whim one day. I actually like know nothing about this, but when I looked up like on Google books with music, this came up, and she actually is a talented musician. Like, if you read the back, like I didn't or I forgot about, it says that she's a talented musician, and this is a fantasy that came out in 2012, and it's got dragons, and it's apparently got a crime mystery, bittersweet romance, political thriller, and a fast-paced fantasy. Fast-paced fantasy is my buzzword, so I really hope I enjoy this book. The next prompt, Melanin Queen, and that is to read a book with a black main character, and for that I'll be reading The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I hope to get to this in August. Unfortunately, I ran out of time, but this will be my first N.K. Jemisin, and I picked this up as it is a urban fantasy. And I think if there's any book that I'll like by N.K. Jemisin, I think it'll be urban fantasy, so I'm definitely hoping to love this. And this is about magic, myth, and culture set in New York. So I'm really excited to read this. I also don't read much speculative fiction, which the reviews on the back say she's a powerhouse of speculative fiction, so I'm really excited to broaden my genres. The next prompt is Beauties and Brains, and I'm going to be reading Gods of Jade's Shadow for that. And then also, again, the group book is The Henna Wars. I really hope my library copy comes in, as like I can't find it like anywhere online. I don't know why it's so hard to find in Australia at the moment. If I can get it, I'll read it. If not, I'll be reading Girl Seventh Dawn. For the Royal Readathon, for the prompt Long Live the King, I'll be reading The Lost Book of White again. For Who Run the Royal Girls, I'll be reading The Pirate King, like I said. And May the Best Woman Win, which is a book with a queendom, I'll be reading The Demon King by Cinder William Chimer. Now, I've actually started this book before and I literally got to like the 80% mark and then just put it down and then didn't pick it up. So I'm not sure if I will cheat and just start from where I finished, or if I have no idea what's happening, I might have to start again. And it's a pretty thick book, so we will see. But I've heard great things about this series and about her spin-off series, but I'm not sure. Like, I was reading this so fast and then I just was like, and forgot about it. So if I can't get through this, I will definitely pick something else and unfortunately unhaul this book. So this is the last chance for this book, and this month will determine the fate of The Demon King. So those are all the books I picked out for the readathons this month. So if I by some miracle get to all those books this month, I may possibly roll more prompts for the Bookoplothon, but I do know I definitely want to get to the Dragon Republic this month. I cannot stop thinking about the Poppy War, and I read it like 2 weeks ago and it's just like in the back of my head all the time. So I really want to get to this soon, as the third and final book comes out I believe in November, so it's not that much wait for the last book, and everyone says this ripped their heart out, so I'm very scared going into it. But the Poppy War was so amazing, so I think I might be able to handle it. I'm also hoping to read this month is Blood and Honey by Shelby Moran. This is the sequel to Serpent of Dove. Now, this book is so divisive on BookTube. People either give it 5 stars or like 1 star. I personally gave it 5 stars. I honestly don't know if my ratings are just too nice. Like, I'm not critical enough. I'm definitely excited to read Blood and Honey, and it's going to come out at the start of this month. I'm hoping my local bookstore will have it in stock. I also really want to reread A Ruin of Kings by Jen Loyne. This is a massive book. Like, I honestly think it's a bit ambitious trying to put this in my TBR this month, but for some reason I've been thinking about this book again. I read it at the end of last year, absolutely loved it. Like, this is the most mind-boggling and makes you feel dumb book, because it's so confusing, but then everything ties it together so perfectly that you're like, oh my god, she's a genius. I'm not as dumb as I thought. It's also really interesting because it has footnotes throughout the book about someone transcribing the events of what's happened, so it's all like kind of in the past, and it's just really like such an amazing fantasy. Like, I highly recommend this book. It's about a bard's apprentice who gets into a lot of trouble with royalty and chaos ensues, and the story goes from there. Like, it starts with our main character Kieran in jail, and a demon shapeshifter is like, tell me your story, and that's where it goes on from there. So it's really interesting, and the third book comes out very soon. I actually have an e-arc of it, so I need to get around to it. So I want to reread this and tab it, so for future releases I don't have to like keep rereading it to remember like the key points, because it's so complicated, but at the same time it's just so amazing. Like, the web of plot and character development in this is like amazing. I do not know how Jen wrote such a complex but very comprehensive book. And if by some miracle I read The Ruin of Kings, I really want to read The Name of All Things, also by Jen Loyne. This is the second book. I never got around to reading it, even though I was super excited for it, but I think it was because I didn't want to wait too long between sequels. So I'll be reading this hopefully, and I'll also be tabbing this book so I don't have to reread it for future upcoming releases. And if all that's not enough, I want to reread An Ember in Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I wanted to read this in August. I couldn't get around to it, but this also has been on my mind because the last book is coming out very soon and I want to catch up on this series. But I definitely, when I first read it, I flew through it and loved it. So I really hope that happens again if I do get around to this book. So with about 17 books on my TBR, those are all the books I am hoping to read in September. I really hope I find some new favorites, as like I said, August was such an amazing reading month that I really have high hopes for September. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you're planning to read in September. Let me know if you're going to be participating in any of these readathons. I would really like to check out anyone's TBRs. So thank you so much for watching, and I better get back.